All right, here back again for another example. This little project is pretty simple. It's titled Lost Project because when I first got Cinematic Strings, I happened to be watching through the TV show Lost for, I think, the 5th time or so. You know, I might have a problem there. But I really wanted to put the strings to the test and see if I could manipulate the sound and the controls to emulate something that had been recorded and used for production. You know, to really see how good these strings are. And so I put this little piece together, and this is kind of a recreation of a piece from Lost. Now, the original score of Lost is composed, orchestrated, and produced by Michael Giacchino. They have been released on a series of soundtrack albums by Varese Sarabande, and those are distributed by Universal Music Group. This is just basically the 5 sections and a piano, nothing more than that. And so for each one of these, we have a mod wheel control and a breath control, which is the vibrato. And what I wanted to do in this little piece here is, this was particularly difficult because I was trying to emulate a part of the Lost score that was very delicate, very intimate. Let me play it down for you, just a portion of it here. There's a bit more at the end there where it really picks up. And something very light and delicate like this, you're going to need control over at least mod wheel, and vibrato helps as well. I don't want to play you the original because I don't want to infringe on anyone's copyright, but this is a pretty close kind of recreation of that. Check out what's happening here in the first violins. Actually, maybe it'd be better to hear the... And so you can hear the vibrato kind of enter in a very natural and kind of musical way. As this little melody rises here in the cello. The vibrato rises up. You know, when I first put this together, you know, and I kind of tracked out where the notes are. You know, this is pretty simple. A lot of it was kind of fine-tuning the dynamics, and you can see that they're all pretty low. If we go in here, let me just change it. I'll put this in raw mode here. So you can see this re-control MIDI here has unchecked raw mode, and that gives it, the highest value is 16,383. If we do raw mode, and we have basically values of 0 to 127. But you can get an idea here. I mean, this first passage here, the second violins are clocking in at a velocity of 18, essentially. You know, that's where it is on the mod wheel. So it's very, very light, very delicate. And to get these kind of volume swells here, to get those with writing into the mod wheel data, you know, this kind of business, you have to do that. You have to be drawing these curves real tiny. So you have to make this huge, you know, and it's really tricky to get kind of a nice long fade without getting any kind of stair-steppy action in there. And so that's basically what's going on here. A lot of just kind of very swelly string parts. Nothing really fancy. It's all legato. I'll show you what's going on in the plugin. Legato's on, live mode is on, and you just play a little bit here. Now, another thing that we haven't really kind of delved into before is messing with the microphones of all the samples. And you can see that each one of these patches only has the Arco loaded. In fact, I have a light, use the template that I showed you how to set up in the beginning of this tutorial, and I basically purged all of the samples here. So you purge all samples, and that just basically unloads it all in case I want to go back to it later. I can reload those samples, or I can just turn them off here. Same idea there. But all the other ones only have Arco, yet they are larger than they were before when we were using them. They were coming in around 470 some odd megabytes, 473 I think, using just the mix microphone. Because that's a bounce down mix of these three, it takes up a lot less memory. As soon as you load up these other ones, then your memory jumps up pretty significantly. We have the close microphone, we have the stage, and then we have the room microphone as well. We can uncheck these, or we can shift click and basically unload these. So just the close microphone, which may actually just be a mono microphone. You can see that's 150 megs. And if we load up this here, that's double. If we load up here, that's another 300 megs or so. You get a lot of different sounds. We just look at the violin here. This is just the stage in the room. If we mute these and load up the close microphone, to turn this up actually. If we turn off the reverb, we get a real kind of dry sound in there. Through some experimentation, I kind of settled on kind of this mix where I have kind of the close in the stage and then some room microphone, but kind of pulled down about 10 decibels, which is a little bit different than the mix, I believe. I don't know exactly, but it seemed right. And having those loaded lets me be able to tweak those as well. You could automate these too if you wanted to, because those are automatable. Having that flexibility kind of helped get the sound of the strings, if you will, closer to the original. Now, that's not to say that you can get these to match perfectly with every recording. You can get it pretty darn close with this kind of flexibility. Because they have the close microphones, the stage, and the room microphones, the combination of these with different reverbs. Now, this reverb is made to match the hall that it was recorded in, but you could pretty easily just take this out of here, route it to a different convolution reverb to give you the sound that these strings are located in a different space. You do have a lot of flexibility, but more to the point, cinematic strings, they have kind of a very warm and rich tone to them, which is neither distinctive nor is it unremarkable. It's a great sounding tone that I think works for a lot of different things. No matter what kind of music you're trying to replicate, I think with these kind of controls, you can get it really, really close. Or if you're doing your own thing, it just gives you a lot of flexibility. But in this particular piece, I took advantage of that. Most of the other times that I use cinematic strings, I have the mix position loaded, and I find that works reasonably well. Now, when you start blending this with other libraries, maybe you have a brass library, you may have to fiddle with this just a little bit more to kind of get that to line up just right. You may find that a different mix here works, or you may find that using just close in the stage combined with a convolution reverb helps you to match kind of another library's reverb. Or it may just be that the regular mix position with a bit of EQ helps as well. Now, I do have EQ on. I think this is the only example here that I've done any kind of EQing at all. They actually have several examples on their site on how they kind of tweak the sound. Sometimes when you're looking at plugins and libraries and stuff, you'll begin to use them and realize they don't sound exactly like the demos. How do they get that sound? Maybe they're a little bit more dry. Maybe the demos that they use recorded by composers were pretty heavily produced, EQ'd and mixed. And so when you're first getting into this, you're left wondering, how do I get this thing that I just bought to sound like they promised it would sound? Well, Cinematic Strings has been kind enough to basically walk you through their kind of gentle EQ curve that they use for their examples on their site. It's really pretty subtle. Let me scroll to the end here where the violins are doing some business. So if we pop this off here, it's very, very subtle. It's a 1 decibel bump at 16K, a 2 decibel dip at 3900 with kind of a medium sharp Q on there, just to take a little bit of the brittleness off, and then give them a little bit more sparkle. So there you go. And then on top of everything, I've done just a little bit more, just a little bit more EQ to try to match the sound of the recording. And I think I got it pretty close. So there you go. It's kind of a cool example. I was pretty pleased with the way this came out. I encourage you to kind of experiment. I feel like a good way to find out what your library is capable of and to get a good handle on it is to try and replicate some of their music. You'll have to explore the dynamic range and any of the other controls and the articulations and the EQ and the processing and the mixing. Rather than trying to start fresh and compose from scratch, trying to recreate some classic or some memorable tracks can be a good exercise in really putting your plugins through their paces and seeing really what you can squeeze out of them. So I hope you found that useful, and I hope you found that interesting.